The circus was transitioning from the small, intimate circus where clowns were king to the more elaborate, sensational, acrobat-oriented venue where clowns were relegated to the sidelines. It became more and more like a business and not like a traveling show that would go from town to town and set up their tents and do their things. It became railroad cars and 1,800 elephants walking down the street. At the time of his death, March of 1916, it was right at the rise and advent and sensationalism of silent movies. Charlie Chaplin was becoming more and more famous. Oakley saw this as an avenue for even greater artistic achievement for him.
All great film makers and performers were actually live performers prior to coming to film. They came from the circus, the music hall, and the theater. 5 great clowns film, which unfortunately Slivers didn't have a chance to join. Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, Harry Langdon, Stan Laurel. Those are the 5 pillars of comedy, of film comedy. Should Slivers have survived and joined the team, he would have been certainly one of the 6 great clowns of all time. But he never made it on film, and that's the tragedy about his story. He came a little too late and too early. At a certain point, he was too early for film. He was not ready yet, and eventually, when he was ready, he had this tragic event in his life.
The woman that he had fallen in love with after his wife had died had stolen a bunch of his deceased wife's jewels and ran away. He was left almost penniless and heartbroken, and one day in a boarding house on 47th Street in New York, turned on the gas but did not light it and decided to go to sleep.
Many great clowns were basically sad people. Even Chaplin himself always said that he preferred tragedy to comedy.
There are many interviews with him where he talks about the serious side of what he did as an artist. How a lot of the times, no matter what you're feeling on the inside on any particular day, you have to go out there and give your best and make everybody smile. And he was very philosophical about it, even to the press. In one of his interviews, he talked about he was doing a show, and all of a sudden something hit him in the forehead, and he put his hand up to his forehead and he saw blood. And a 5-year-old child had thrown a rock at him. And he goes, "Look, Dad, look what I did." And they were laughing, and the father said, "Yeah, that was a corking shot." And in this interview, he said, that's what my life is you go out there and your pain is another person's laughter.
I think it's a very touching story. Before he falls into oblivion, it's our responsibility as artists and filmmakers to pay tribute to someone who was one of the great clowns of all time.
The fact that he was so famous and that nobody had ever heard of him from our time period. And it was like an original story that jumped out from the pages and said it needed to be told.
If there is such a thing as a clown's heaven or paradise, I'd like to think that Slivers and Chaplin and all the great ones, they're all performing together up there somewhere and watching over us.